Nobody cares about it. So that's the right title. I'm Captain Gimpy, that's Zen Burro. I
Yep.
am the Lord of Gimpy and the Philosophical Vagabond, and you are the Zenist of Burros, and you are also a philosophical homeless person.
Yeah. I thought of a different title for my namesake, but that's not the topic for this discussion right now.
What do you want me to change it to? I'll change it.
I was either thinking ghost or phantom.
Wait. So you wanted just to say Phantom?
No, I mean, like, instead of the Zen, just ghost or phantom, but we don't have to do it right now.
The Ghost of Burros?
No, like my whole name. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we're here with the Stoicism of Epictetus.
You should use complete sentences.
Instead of Zen Burro, it's just either Ghost Burro or Phantom Burro. That's what
well, what's the matter? You don't like being Zen anymore?
I was just thinking about it. I was like, I think I like those now.
We'll see how it looks after the stream, and if you actually it's like down there. All right. What are we talking about today?
We're still reading Epictetus's handbook.
Oh yeah, today's okay. Streams. I lose track sometimes. Oh wait, I should. Yeah, you need to push the focus button thing. Spotlight. There we go. All right. So we're on number 33, and I guess I'll start. Oh, I should turn that off. So oh. I wish they would change that because that's not a good idea. All right. 33. Draw up right now a definite character and identity for yourself, one that you intend to stick to whether you're by yourself or in company. Stay mainly silent or keep your conversation to the necessary minimum, or on rare occasions, though, when the situation calls for it, engage in talk, but not about the topics like gladiators or horse races or athletes or food or drink. The things that come up all the time. And above all else, don't talk critically or flatteringly or judgmentally about people by your own conversation. If you can, guide your friends' talk in a fitting direction, but if you find yourself all alone among strangers, stay silent. I gotta be honest, this is one area where I don't quite agree with Epictetus.
Mm-hmm.
Don't laugh much or often, and keep it down. Refuse completely to take an oath, or if that is out of the question, refuse to the extent that you can. Excuse yourself from attending parties given by people outside your circle. But if you have to, be very careful not to slip into their ways. A companion's crudeness is bound to rub off on the one he is with, no matter how refined a person may be. In things that have to do with the body, food, drink, clothes, housing, and servants, take only what you need and cut out everything that is for show or luxury. As for sex, abstain as far as possible before marriage. Yeah, this is Musonius Rufus too, who I think taught Epictetus.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And if you do go in for it, wow. Do nothing that is socially unacceptable. But don't interfere with other people on the account of their sex lives or criticize them, and don't broadcast your own abstinence. If you are told that someone is talking badly of you, don't defend yourself against their story, but reply, obviously, he didn't know my other faults, otherwise he would have mentioned those as well. Other translations of this passage in Epictetus are far funnier. There is no need to put in much of an appearance at the public games, And if the occasion arises, don't let people see you supporting anyone's side except your own. I mean, you should want the result to be exactly what it is, for the winner to be exactly the one who wins. And in this way, you won't be disappointed. Um, Restrain yourself from completely shouting or laughing at anyone or getting strongly involved. After coming away, confine your account of the events to the experiences that bear on your own improvement. Otherwise, people will think that you were impressed by the spectacle. Um, don't show up casually or thoughtlessly at public lectures, but when you have, but when you do go, behave decently and seriously without causing offense. Whenever you are going to meet anyone, especially someone thought to be important, ask yourself what Socrates or Zeno would have done in this case, and you will have no difficulty in handling the situation appropriately. And when you call on some high official, imagine you will not be able to find him at home, um, and that you will be shut out, and that the door will be slammed in your face, and that he will ignore you. But if, in spite of this, you really have to go, accept it and go without ever telling yourself it was not worth all that. That's what an ordinary person would do, someone upset by mere circumstances. Um, in company, don't go on at length about your own deeds or adventures. It may be pleasant for you to recount them, but others are less eager to hear about what happened to you. And don't try to be funny. It's a behavior that easily lapses into vulgarity, and it is liable to make your neighbors think less of you. Be warned. 2, against encouraging lewd conversation. And if and when anything of that sort happens, chide the person who has started it, if you can find the right moment, and if you show your dislike of the talk by staying silent, blushing, and frowning. Okay, so there are things that I sort of agree with here, and then there are things that I really don't.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Um, I don't know. I mean, it's like polite behavior 101 to me for this one. Um, but I've definitely seen the ramifications of, like, let's say you began a lewd conversation or something like that. Even if people don't actually tell you that they think less of you, it creates an impression in their minds, and so they approach you a certain way. I've had to deal with this when I was at the grocery store, because I thought it was funny to, like, bring up perverted things and all that, but in the long run, it just made me more socially isolated because people weren't always into that. So I would kind of take this as, like, be careful of what topics you bring up. Like, if it was just a hangout or anything, not like a work-related thing, like, if this was for a job, this would make a lot of sense.
Right.
But if we're doing, like, like we're hanging out with friends or we know them really well, I don't think this would necessarily apply. I think it's just like when you're among other strangers or people you don't have a close friendship with.
Yeah, this mofo's saying, like, do that all the time, and I'm sorry, but to me, like, that's just like saying be a boring ass person.
Yeah, and I think this is where the whole Stoic stereotype, I think this kind of feeds into that. Like, this is the one people bring up to, like, oh, see, like, Stoics, emotionless robots and all that.
Yeah, dude, and honestly, like this, like you said, it doesn't really help that stereotype at all.
Right.
Epictetus to me, this is just my own opinion on his circumstances, had the luxury of living both outside society and in it as a figure of some prominence.
Yeah.
So I don't think he really, how do I put this? I don't think he had to play very many social games in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for those of us who don't have that luxury, to just because, like, to be honest with you, my sense, like, when it came to humor and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that's where I ended up disagreeing the most. Because, like, personally, unless it's work, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's work, I genuinely do not care what you think of my sense of humor, the
Mm-hmm.
things that I like or dislike, or what you think of the stories I tell. Like, the people who enjoy my company are going to be around, and those who don't won't. That's kind of
Right.
how I take that. I would never, like, for example, I would never, tell lewd stories at work. Like, that's just stupid.
Right. Even
That's
if other people end up doing that themselves.
Yeah, because that's just asking for like sexual harassment complaints where none need to exist, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of disagree with him unless it's a work scenario. Then I'm 100% in agreement. But to be honest, dude, I'd rather be seen as an asshole than be boring to myself.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know.
I don't know. Does that make you less stoic? Well, I don't know, cause
Because like, if you think about it, like the story of how Chrysippus died,
yeah,
obviously, dude had a sense of humor.
yeah. So
And Seneca had a completely different view about this type of stuff.
right.
He just said basically do what you gotta do on the outside, but make sure that you're not like emotionally involved in that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Like, know that when you go to gamble, you're gonna lose money.
yeah, and that's your choice.
Yeah. He was a little more morally indifferent about those types of things because I think his position as a statement or statesman rather
Yeah,
meant that he had to function in that way.
yeah. Keep up appearances and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah. So
I
yeah,
don't go ahead, my bad.
yeah. This is one I break all the time. So
Same, dude.
so I don't know. Like I said, I kind of think of this as like polite manners 101 if you really need it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
because
totally
this is everything that a customer service job tells you to avoid, or
yeah.
tells you to do.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I view it.
Um fucking
But there could be people who would benefit from this because they really don't have the manners.
no, I get that too. Like I know people who just think um well, okay, so there are borders to this,
Yeah,
right? Because on the one hand, I live with someone who has a super fake personality when it comes to interacting with other people.
yeah,
And when he's by himself, he literally acts like a crazy person.
hmm,
So, like, for those people, I think that, like, they need to turn this stuff inward
yeah,
because the outward stuff, like, they're fine, I guess.
hmm,
It's just that it's incongruent with the rest of their behavior, so then why it just comes off as completely disingenuous.
right,
So then I guess you could kind of flip this in that circumstance. And some people are just of the assumption that they should be able to act however they want, regardless of the circumstances.
yeah,
And for those people, I think this advice is most relevant.
hmm, yeah, that makes sense.
And like you said, in a work environment. I mean, dude, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I've worked with people who gather around in a gaggle of men, right?
Yep.
And like I say gaggle because you know how geese walk, right? They're kind of like ah ah ah,
Yep.
and then like they're kind of darting their heads in and out, talking about girls' butts and all this other. I'm like, dude,
Yeah. Alcohol and beer. Yeah.
you're gonna get fired one day.
Yeah. Oh man. There's so many instances where like there would have been a sexual harassment policy violation.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and when they're doing this at work, like they're gathered in a circle, like I mean, yeah. So I mean, this advice does have its merits in certain circumstances.
Right.
You want to do 34?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whenever the impression of some pleasure comes into your mind, guard yourself against being carried away by it, just as you should do with impressions in general. Let the thing wait a bit and give yourself a pause. Then think of both times. First the one when you will enjoy the pleasure, and then the one after that, when you will be sorry and be angry with yourself. Now contrast them with your joy and self-satisfaction if you abstain. But if you find this the right moment to embark on the affair, do beware that you are not being overwhelmed by its charm and sweetness and allure. Think how much better it is to realize that you have won this victory.
What do you think about this one?
This one about self-discipline. Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I don't know. Because pleasure's complicated sometimes.
Very true.
Yeah. So, like, food pleasures, I could take it or leave it, but I still like ice cream and stuff. I think sometimes, like, an excess of pleasure is probably the worst that could happen.
Yeah.
Also, like, we live in a society that encourages pleasure seeking. I mean, I don't think Rome was any different.
Oh, probably not.
Yeah, so, like, there's that battle between, because we got advertisements in our brains because we see ads all the time, whether it's on the websites or billboards, whatever it is, even products that you look at, whether it's food or cannabis or anything, there's buzzwords that like trigger in your head,
Like
cause you to buy it.
energizing.
Yeah, same with energy drinks.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the worst because you and I are a fiend for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like sometimes just drinking it, not even for the caffeine, but just for the taste.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and even when I do restrain myself on purpose because like, I want to stop or like I don't want to feel like I'm always dependent on it.
Yeah.
There is a sense, for me, there is a little sense of satisfaction because it means that I'm not entirely enslaved to it, but I don't know, there are just certain days where like I just want it.
I'm not gonna say I disagree with you, right?
Yeah.
But like I've kind of given up on making myself think that I can master my caffeine addiction.
Well, yeah, I never said I stopped consuming caffeine. Like, I'll just still drink coffee, but like the energy drink, I don't really need it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. But like, whenever if I do like really want an energy drink,
Yeah.
usually these days I just go to the gas station.
Yeah. So,
I'm not saying I'm better or worse. Like it's just like usually I'll drink coffee, but like on when I actually want an energy drink or on Like, that's one of the reasons why, like, when you come over, I ask you if you have energy drinks, because then that's usually the one day I drink them. But if I want them on a different day, I usually just, like, it's so rare that I usually just go grab one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not necessarily the stoic way, but whatever, man. Like, I have other things to concern myself with other than, whether or not I want, like, 240 milligrams of caffeine in a single.
Right, right. Now, other things like substances and like
Yeah.
sexual pleasure and all that, that stuff can easily slide into excess.
Oh, very much.
So, I mean, this would be good for that, to keep this in mind. Because, like, there are vast consequences for that. Like, caffeine and stuff, I don't really think there is. Maybe there are people who are really sensitive. I mean, there are people who are sensitive, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
they don't need it.
yeah. And, like,
I just knew people who like had high anxiety, but then they would still consume caffeine because it was part of their habit.
they
Even though, even though like it was kind of detrimental during those episodes.
yeah, like, they definitely don't be needing caffeine, dude.
Yeah,
If your anxiety levels are that high, save yourself some of the trouble, and if you're downing energy drinks, like, just stop.
yeah,
Because whether you think it's helping you in a way or not, I guarantee you, it isn't. No matter what you actually think or feel, in those cases, especially if you have panic disorders,
yeah,
do not drink caffeine, dude. It does not help you. It only makes it worse. Um, Also, the other thing I kind of wanted to say about this is, like, self discipline and depression or something like that. Like, if you, how do I put this?
hmm
If you have depression, because, like, you and I both do,
yeah,
um, there are two types of depression in my head, right? There's the type of depression that's caused by, like, circumstances in your life,
hmm
primarily. And then secondarily, if that goes on for a long time, it creates a chemical imbalance.
yeah,
But usually those are correctable.
hmm
And then there are people that are unlucky like me who are genetically predisposed to anxiety and depression.
yeah,
And it started manifesting really hardcore when I was like 13, and I always thought I was just lazy.
hmm
And I found that when I'm going through a depressive spiral, I feel undisciplined. I am supremely unmotivated. But if I have the opportunity to, like, kind of balance myself out chemically,
yeah,
um, my lack of motivation goes away, and I feel like I actually get shit done. So, like, if you're experiencing that type of stuff, go really, like, see a doctor.
yeah,
Like, no joke, because it might not be you the way that you think of you. It might be a thing.
hmm
You might have, like, cyclothymia, dysthymia, low-grade depression, major depressive disorder, seasonal affective disorder, or you might just be, like, going through some grief or some difficult shit, and you, like, need help processing it, because that can cause a lot of problems too.
yep,
And there's no shame in getting some help with that. So if you're dealing with that, I encourage you to investigate those options.
yeah.
It's important, dudes. Uh, okay, number 35. Unless there's something you want to add.
No, that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. Whenever you do something that you have decided ought to be done, never try to avoid being seen doing it. Even if people in general might disapprove of it, um, if, of course, your action is wrong, just don't do it at all. Sorry. But if it's right, why are you afraid of people whose criticism is off the mark? Oh, God. This is so common.
Yeah,
Um, and it So this is a complicated issue. So it's a simple passage, and I like the advice,
Yeah.
but the issue underlying it is complicated. Um, because what I've realized is that over the course of raising children and like growing up as people, we are conditioned by our parents. No, I'm not blaming parents, but like think about what it means to be raised by people.
Yeah.
The way most people raise children is like, I dictate the rules, I teach my children to follow rules, and those rules lead to what I think is good morality.
Yeah.
Or some parents don't do any raising at all, and those parents become problematic humans, and some of them lose their children, and the ones who don't who are very permissive or very hands off, end up giving rise to children with an identity crisis, and the ones who are too strict end up leading to people who have real issues with authority, like me.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean when I say the issue is complicated, because from those types of paradigms, we're used to we become very accustomed to external validation
Yeah.
of our actions. And so, if you grow older and you don't get out of that mental habit of wanting specific people to approve or disapprove of your actions in order to guide you, um, I've met many people who have anxiety disorders that come from that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I've encountered similar people, and like I didn't have very strict upbringing, so I just didn't know what I wanted to do, except play video games, honestly.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Sometimes it's still kind of like that, regardless.
Yeah.
But but yeah,
Yeah.
the thing about what if you decided what ought to be done, never try to be with. When I had to switch jobs because I didn't like where I was, um, I pretty much ignored everyone's criticisms who knew I was switching.
Yeah.
Because, well, I mentioned this, like I got fired from my other job, so I found Amazon, and then I didn't like that, so I wanted to go somewhere else. You know, it was kind of risky because I chose to quit before I actually found a job, but you know, we talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just felt it had to be done for myself because I wasn't really happy, which was affecting like people around me and my own self. So
Not only were you not happy, you were supremely unhappy.
yeah, unhappy, depressed, and existentially depressed, to be specific. So yeah,
Yeah.
This is one of those where it's like, if it's right, then why are you afraid of what people think?
Yeah. And okay, so if you're in therapy, to this point, if you're in therapy, your therapist will have you go through one or more values clarification exercises.
Yeah,
If you're not in therapy and you think that sort of thing is useful, you can actually find worksheets to help you.
yeah, they're online.
Yeah,
So
a ton. And there's different variations. And I would just pick one that you think would be the most useful. And the point of that is to understand your own compass, what
mm,
you value, and how that dictates your actions. Some people have found is that they value a lot of external things. Like some people have literally filled these out and said, I want X amount of money every year. I want like this kind of girlfriend. I want like, and almost all of what they say is external. And so for those people, therapists will often be like, okay, so what's inside you that you value?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, like, you have influence over those external things, but you don't dictate whether or not you actually achieve them, not 100%. And
Yeah.
it's hard to not, it's hard to frame other people's opinions as less important than your own if the things that you value are all things that you have no direct control over.
Right.
And that's the mechanism of that, right? So, like, if you're having difficulty with valuing other people's critiques of you too much, well, some critiques can be constructive, and you should take that and be like, okay, how can I be a better person?
Yeah.
How can I be, like, more me? But, like, if you don't know what that means, like, it's really important to figure that out before you move forward. That's all I'm saying about that.
Right.
But we've been conditioned to really value external stuff, like whether like if you're a geek and you're into PC gaming, you're like, do I have the latest shit? And like, am I getting the best for like you know what I mean? Like my friend's computer is better. Oh, I should probably upgrade my GPU to the new 3090. By the way, don't they crash?
Yeah.
Right now because well, yeah, I should do tech streams. um, but yeah, stuff like that. And so if you're caught up in that loop, man, you really got to take a step back and figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Figure out what's actually important to you. Like if you didn't have any of that stuff, what would still be important to you? Right?
Yep.
And like I found that I'm good with like books I think are important, like which I do have control over.
Right.
Um, one of the things that are important to me is like being helpful to other people, doing work that I believe is meaningful, which is tied into the first thing I said.
Mm-hmm.
Being consistent to what I say is very important to me.
Yeah.
I don't always succeed at it, and I'm aware of that. But like when I screw up, and I tell people I screw up. And you know, the things that I'm passionate about, like repurposing old tech, seems to be a thing that I like. Accessibility in games, um, disability advocacy, all those things are things that fall under the umbrella of what I think is meaningful work that I would do even if I don't make money at doing it.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things are really important because once you have those, if someone bags on you, is like, "Oh, you're wasting your time doing Twitch streams," I'm like, "Well, at least I'm making a difference to like one or more people out in the world."
Yeah.
You know, and so your opinion doesn't. I mean, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm content with what I'm doing. Um, anything you want to add to that one? Any personal stories or whatever? Because you know, there's always room for that.
I think I'm good.
All right. So you're reading the next one, then, eh?
Yeah, you can form a valid disjunctive statement from the propositions "it is day" and "it is night" taken separately. Either "it is day" or "it is night," but the conjunctive statement "both it is day and it is night" is completely invalid. Similarly, at a dinner party, choosing the larger share could have positive value for the body, but it has negative value for maintaining the sociability the occasion requires. So when you are dining with someone, be mindful not only to note the value of the dishes for your body, but also to show respect for your host.
Anything you want to say about that one?
I kind of think of this like more polite stuff, like at a social gathering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long is the Enchiridion again? Specifically, this section of like the Enchiridion itself, is it 46 or 42?
I don't remember. It's more than 46. It's 53.
Oh, never mind then. Okay. Yeah. How far do you want to go? Because I know we haven't eaten yet either, or I haven't eaten yet.
You want to go up to 40?
Yeah,
Or,
I'm done with that. I'm done with
okay.
that. So 37. If you have taken on a role beyond your capacity, you have demeaned yourself in it. You have also passed up the role you could have filled creditably. I think this is really like self-explanatory, but I also think that it's really important. So um, maybe we can like sort of expand on that a little bit, because I think this is something that is super valuable from Stoicism that a lot of people don't think of. In fact, when I was in school, I was told to do the opposite.
Yeah.
So what do you got for this one?
Well, this one's complex because, well, we live in a culture that encourages you to take on a role beyond your abilities sometimes, like the whole success thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not talking about people who try to be entrepreneurs, and I mean, like, there's a whole seductive allure with the notion of success, like being wealthy and having the latest gear and the latest stuff.
yeah.
And how do you earn that stuff? Like, you gain manager positions, or you find a way to, like, other ways to make money. But the notion of a role is interesting in Stoicism because it's not just like a role in terms of like a job, but also your role as in like, let's say, a father or brother or like something like that.
A citizen of whatever country you're from.
Yeah, like, are you really capable of taking on the mantle of fatherhood?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I've seen men who I don't think would really make good fathers because of how they are.
But then they have kids.
Yeah, or similarly with a woman who becomes a mother, like, do they actually have the ability to fill the role of motherhood or no? I mean, we've seen there are so many like abandoned kids and kids in foster homes, so yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, man, your point was pretty similar to my point. I was gonna come at it from a slightly different angle though, so I guess I will. For those of you who've like watched our YouTube channel or any of our other streams, you might know that I went to school and I got a degree in like IT and multimedia, and then I got another one in like game design.
Mm.
And when you're going to school for that kind of stuff, what they tell you to do is literally like if the job is even remotely adjacent to the skill set you have, just to take it and figure it out.
Yeah,
And like there's two major things about that. On the one hand, it can be a positive experience because you're forcing yourself to learn new skills in order to help yourself survive as a freelancer, which is great.
yeah,
On the other hand, you could just be really horrible at what you're going to try to do. And
mm,
like, your client's not going to be satisfied. You're going to be nervous and dissatisfied. And then you're going to, like, your clientele is going to look poorly on your work because you're doing things that you're eminently unqualified for.
yeah,
And you're not going to be satisfied because you're going to think, rightly so, that you should have provided a better level of service. And so I'm going to advise people that if the skills that you have can be easily parlayed into an adjacent skill set.
Mm.
Do it, but do it smartly. Learn what you need for that specific job and don't get lost in the rabbit hole. And
Yeah.
make sure that like there's only a 20% skill gap between your current skill set and the one you're trying to acquire. If it's any wider than that, take it from my personal experience, you're going to fail. Okay? You're going to fail, and unless you're a fucking prodigy, don't expect a different answer.
Yeah.
And like I'm kind of smart, but like I'm not that smart. All right? So if I couldn't do it, like most people aren't going to be able to either.
Right.
Well, let me give you an example. So if you're primarily a web designer and somebody's asking for print work and your graphic design skills are fairly solid, you can learn basic pre-press and do that. But if your training is in graphic design, web design, and then somebody asks you to do video work, don't.
Right.
Don't.
Yeah, those are two completely different.
Like, I gotta be honest, I don't care if you've done YouTube content. If it's good YouTube content, like it's top tier in terms of production value, fine. You probably learned enough. But if you've just done really basic YouTube videos and the only thing you know how to do is make basic cuts, do not offer video services. Completely different arena with a completely different set of technical problems that could go wrong.
Yeah.
So that's an example of for and against, right? Like the going from screen to print, yeah, there's a lot to go into that's really deep to be really proficient, but you can get away with it with a 20% skill gap rule. But going from like web and graphic design to video is a much larger chasm, and you really need like another skill set in addition. Like graphic design and stuff will help your video work, but like don't just think that because you know how to make a basic ass looking YouTube video,
Yeah.
you can just turn your graphic design skills into a video business. It doesn't work that way. It's different. Because that's like a 50-60% skill gap.
Right.
20% is the limit. Oh, my mom's here. Damn.
Mm.
All right.
We're almost done, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Is it you or me?
Yeah, it's me. You are careful in walking not to step on a nail or twist your ankle, when you should be just as careful to do no harm to your commanding faculty. If we stick to this rule in every action, we shall perform what we are doing more securely. Basically, just be as careful with what you do with your reasoning as well as your body. But then again, there's some people who aren't really that careful in all aspects.
Yeah.
But well, it's interesting because the Stoics, from what I've been reading,
See, you have extra knowledge, so I wish you would be sharing that more.
yeah, they never really saw reason as either like, the defining quality of a rational person. It can be just as corrupted as, a person's soul, if you want to use that word. Because, people use things like strategy and reasoning to further their own self-aggrandizing goals,
Yes.
more than like, doing it for the sake of virtue or self-improvement or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think about, Machiavellian political leaders or something.
So to like summarize, because I'm slightly confused, but let me see if I got it right. So what you're saying is that they don't necessarily see a strong ability to reason in itself as a good thing.
No.
Okay. Because so like what you're saying is like even if you have a highly developed reasoning ability, you can use that for bad.
You can use it for bad things.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that is what you're saying. Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah. So, whereas with Plato, it was the opposite, where like,
Yeah, he thought reason in itself was like the pinnacle of good
yeah,
in itself.
yep,
And if you disagree, like you really need to read Plato.
basically.
And not just the apology like most people do that try to argue with me.
Mhm.
Okay? Don't read the apology and tell me you read Plato. It doesn't work. You've got to at least make it through Plato's 5 principal dialogues to even have an opinion. And if you're a nerd, you can go read the Republic and what was that other one? The Laws?
Yeah, that one I don't know much about.
Yeah, I haven't read that at all, and I'm not going to pretend I know what it says because I don't.
Hmm.
Um, but Plato was very. He is what we've come to stereotype as Greek philosophy, right? So,
Yeah,
um, the Greeks mostly thought that what makes a human different from other animals, and they did say other animals,
yeah,
as opposed to the later Christianized view as being above animals, right? That was the
yeah,
Christianized reinterpretation. And they said what made us different from other animals was our ability to reason. Plato kind of takes that to the next level and says that reason is what makes a person good.
yeah,
Because he thinks that um, in perfecting the ability to reason, you have achieved the highest good.
right.
Um, the Stoics, like you were saying, and now that I'm sure what you said, like I see it all over the place in Stoicism. They thought reason was good, but they didn't think reason of it in and of itself was good.
Yeah,
They thought it could be a good thing,
yeah, exactly.
and but like the other Greeks, they did think that it was what defined humans as opposed to other animals.
Yeah, it was like what you were feeding your soul, basically. That,
Yeah,
and yeah, because
yeah,
if the machine gets corrupted, then everything else connected to it will be eventually. Or if the tree rots from the inside, yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of how I view it.
No, you're right. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah. So unless you got anything else to say about that, I'm good.
which one did we just finish? The 37 to 38.
38. So we're on 39.
Okay, okay. Because they're kind of connected in terms of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, the body is the proper measure for each person's acquisitive needs, just as the foot is the proper measure for a shoe. Um, if you stick to this rule, you will keep in good measure. If you are to go beyond, wait, if you go beyond it, you are bound in the end to go over a cliff, so to speak. It is the same with the shoe if you exceed the foot. First comes a gilded shoe, and then the next one embroidered with purple, and once you exceed the measure, there is no limit. Um, this is strangely worded, but I get what he's.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, on the one hand, it looks like he's talking about, the body, like, so when he says acquisitive needs, it's like, just as the body is the proper measure for each person's acquisitive needs, right? Like,
Yeah.
the body will tell you, signal to you what you need to give it.
Hmm.
If you go over that, you become obese. If you go under that, you're both skinny and malnourished. Like if you're American, you can be obese and malnourished. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the thing. But if you pervert those rules, if you go beyond them either way, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah. That was funny how you put that, because uh, I don't know how nutrition was back then, but we live in an age where we can like literally create foods of just sugar.
Yeah, and that doesn't really provide any sus-
Yeah, so like it would be interesting if Epictetus came back through time and he's like, "Whoa, what the hell?"
what are you guys doing? Um, like on the other hand, when he talks about the shoes, right?
Yeah,
He's like, okay, so now first we have a gilded shoe, and then the next one is embroidered with purple. So the thing about embroidered with purple is like purple was a royal color because it was really expensive to produce.
yeah,
Um, so on the face of it, he's talking about everything in good measure, but what he's really talking about here, I think, is greed.
hmm,
Um, and that's why he ends it with "there is no limit." So keep human greed in check, I think, is the main message of this.
yeah, because we all can fall into that.
Yeah, yeah. You want to do this last one?
Sure. As soon as they are 14, women are called ladies by men, so when they see that their only prospect is to go to bed with them, they begin to make themselves up and place all their hopes on their looks. They need to understand that the true basis for being respected is to appear refined and modest.
This is still true. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but it's fine. I still believe this to be accurate. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, dude. I feel like I'm going to catch a lot of heat for this, but I think of it like basic advertising, right?
Hmm.
If you put a product out there and you're salaciously selling it, you create high levels of desire.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily create an image of like dependability.
Hmm.
And like as soon as someone gets what they want, if you don't cultivate a strong relationship, they're going to discard you just like, those annoying infomercial products. And it's sad that I have to put it that way, but I've seen it happen to so many people and it hurts to watch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't need to make yourself look a certain way to be appealing.
Right.
Because to me, what's like most appealing is what I find in the person and not just what I see on the outside.
Right. Right.
I've experienced this firsthand, right? Where like the more I've gotten to know a person, like, well, since I'm straight, like, the more I've gotten to know a woman, like, I might not initially be physically attracted,
Hmm.
and then the more I get to know them, if I genuinely like feel a connection with them, and that connection grows, you will become attractive to me.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm sorry that our society doesn't operate that way, and it sucks. And trust me, I know that just as well as anybody. I mean, who wakes up in the morning is like, oh yeah, you know what? That I just want to date everybody in a wheelchair. That's the most desirable thing ever. And I'm like, most people don't think like that.
Yeah.
Most people think the exact opposite. The minute they see a wheelchair, it's undesirable. Like, or they don't think about it at all until they're faced with it, and then they're profoundly uncomfortable because they've never considered it.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, figure out who you are, be you, and like trust that. Like life will lead you to fulfilling relationships if you proceed with integrity, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah.
And like if your rules for living don't match up with another person and they're trying to force you to be something completely against everything you have going on inside, it,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter how attractive they are on the outside, they're not worth it. They're just not. Because I think this specifically speaks to mating.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be real. It's about mating.
Pretty much.
Anything you want to add?
No, it's pretty much said what I was gonna say.
Oh, damn. Make sure you run your phone update.
It's already running.
Okay, mine just finished. That's why I remembered. Um, any like closing remarks you'd want to make, dude?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any unless you got any.
Um, I guess I would want to make a general remark on Stoicism. Stoicism catches a lot of flack for, advocating apathy, but that's really not the case, although there are certain passages where certain Stoics seem to push that in certain circumstances more than others.
Right.
Um, but to me, I see it as a solid way of evaluating yourself, evaluating your social circumstances in relation to your own values,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to embody those as authentically as possible.
Yeah.
Um, there are people that say Stoicism isn't for everyone. Um, that's only true if you mean that some people won't take to Stoicism or like it.
Yeah.
However, the statement on the face of it, I fundamentally disagree with. I think Stoicism is for everyone, and I think there is something to take away from it, even if it offends you.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot there.
I think we've gotten away from willing to be offended and still be able to take away what's valuable.
Yeah, well, I mean, even Seneca didn't agree with all the Stoics. So,
And they most certainly didn't agree with him.
yeah, so it's not set in stone. It's
Yeah,
not like
exactly.
following religious dogma.
And I gotta be honest, like that's one of the things that bugs me is a lot of people do treat this like it's like mainline Christianity and like you have to follow everything this person said. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah,
You don't. Um, for example, like different Stoics probably like Seneca certainly had different views on marital relationships and relations to like sexual relations and that compared to Epictetus.
yeah.
And Masonius Rufus was even stricter than Epictetus when it came to those things.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's a philosophy, dude. It's something to be like lived and worked with, not like you either are stoic or you're not. Like
Yeah,
I mean, people who say that even in these online groups I belong to, I'm sorry, you could not be more incorrect. Um, there needs to be room for personal growth. We need to start thinking of Stoicism not only as a philosophy, but as a set of skills and frameworks that can be cultivated. Um, and if something can be cultivated, then that means that it takes practice.
right.
And practice means that nothing is ever perfect and that we just keep making progress. And when I'm depressed, I forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I'm undepressed, it's like dumbass obvious. Um, and right now, it's dumbass obvious. So yeah, I mean that's what I want to leave you guys. That's my message at the end of all of these Stoicism streams. Um, like, if I'm being perfectly honest, Taoism really isn't saying anything that substantially different from Stoicism, and neither is Buddhism. Um, they arrive at the same point from three different roads.
Yeah,
Um, think of Zen, like Buddhism and Taoism as running parallel to one another. They're side by side, but they're not the same road.
yeah,
Zen Buddhism is kind of in the middle. And then Greek Stoicism kind of comes from the westward angle, but they're like they all end up at fundamentally the same place.
yeah.
So if you study one of them for long enough, you'll start seeing similarities. If
Mm-hmm.
you practice one of them for long enough, you will know the similarities. You won't just see them. Uh,
Yeah,
And you'll make a lot of people upset in online groups because that's the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's it.
Yep.
See you guys next time. And, love, peace, and chicken grease and all that.
Yeah.
Peace, victory. If you're Japanese, it's victory. If you're American, it's peace. Whichever. Bye, guys.
All right.